Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted you could join us for today's Data Science for Financial Services Lunch and Learn. My name is David Aaron. I'm the Marketing Manager for the Graduate Apprenticeships team here at Heriot-Watt. And I'm just going to quickly go over the running order and cover off some quick housekeeping. So first up, we're going to hear from Jen Henderson, who's our Head of Talent Partnerships. Then we'll hear from Dr. Heba Shukri, who's the Programme Director for our Data Science Graduate Apprenticeships. And we're also delighted to welcome Miriam Freeman and Fiona Jimison from one of our employer partners, Sainsbury's Bank. Miriam is the Apprenticeships and Qualifications Lead, and Fiona is one of our Data Science Graduate Apprentices. We're delighted that Fiona and Miriam have joined us today to share their experience of the Data Science Graduate Apprenticeship. So in terms of housekeeping, so during the presentations, we'd really appreciate it if you could just switch off your mics and cameras. Just a quick point out that the session will be recorded today. And at the end of the presentations, you'll obviously have the opportunity to ask the panel some questions. You can either do that using the chat function, or if you like, you can put your hand up and ask these verbally. We'll keep an eye on that. Now, before we start, you'll notice in the chat function, there is just a short poll. So this is really just to help us kind of understand the level of knowledge of graduate apprenticeships before we get into the presentations. So it'd be great if you could fill that in just to give us a better idea. Now, without further ado, I am going to now hand over to Jen. Jen, over to you.
Thanks, David. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to have you all join us this afternoon. As David said, I'm Jen Henderson. I am the Head of Talent Partnerships at Heriot-Watt University. Just to give you a bit of an insight into what's involved in my role, the team and I work really closely with businesses like yourselves to develop partnerships with the university that are focused on supporting, attracting and retaining talent. And we specifically have a focus on our graduate apprenticeship programmes that we'll tell you a bit more about this afternoon. I have two other colleagues on the call with me, Dan O'Gorman and Derek, they work closely with a number of employers to support them with their graduate apprenticeship opportunities, and they'll be happy to follow up with any detailed discussion after today's session. So let's start, as the focus for today is on data science, let's start by looking at why data is so important for business in today's economy. We know that data is the key to understanding all aspects of a business. I don't need to tell those of you who are on the call with that. I'm sure you'll see that in your daily lives. So everything from supplies to HR, marketing, logistics and customer service, data enables businesses to make informed decisions that both strengthen the proposition, reduce costs, enhance your products and ultimately deliver better value and service for your customers. So data is good for your business and essential for your business's success. We know that data roles are among the fastest growing and most in-demand jobs across all sectors of the economy. We have 2/3 of firms citing data skills as important for their business. But there is a skills gap between the demand and the supply of data skills. That's been really, really strongly identified through the research that's been done. Only 24% of organisations feel their data mature, so they understand what data they gather and how to use it, which is really, really crucial. There's a big difference between having the data and using the data effectively. And 46% of businesses feel that they're suffering from a data skills shortage. So really what we're looking at is how we can support businesses to address that data skills shortage through our graduate apprenticeship programme. It's a great opportunity. It's really easy to focus on the challenges and the negatives, but this is a great opportunity for businesses to upskill and reskill existing employees. And there's huge potential for individuals like a number of you on the call today to build the skills that you need for the increasingly important data roles. We do have guests from a number of roles and a number of businesses on the call today. So if you can go into the chat, we've added a Padlet in the chat and we've asked you a couple of questions in that. It would be really helpful for us if you can take the time whilst we're on the call to answer the questions that are in that Padlet, and that'll help us to ensure that we cover everything that's relevant for your roles and for your businesses. So if you just scroll back up through the chat, you should be able to see that and access it. So let's have a look at why Heriot-Watt. I don't know, all of you may not be aware of Heriot-Watt in our history. So for those of you who don't know, Heriot-Watt was founded in 1821. And since we've always had a long history of working with industry, and we've really been at the forefront of work-based learning. Since the foundation 200 years ago, Heriot-Watt has been pushing the boundaries of education. We've been developing new ways to build skills and share knowledge and supporting both traditional and non-traditional students. Currently, approximately 50% of our students are non-traditional, learning remotely through a variety of flexible education provisions, and crucially one of those that's really important for us is our work-based learning opportunities. The breadth and quality of the Heriot-Watt teaching is reflected in the stats that you can see on the slide. Heriot-Watt produces more CEOs than any other learning institute in Scotland. I think that's one that we can be really, really proud of. Over 350 companies in Scotland have employees who are benefiting from the wide range of upskilling and reskilling options that we provide. We can give you more detail and information on those if you need them. 95% of our graduates, the future of our graduates once they leave university is very impressive. 95% of our graduates move on to employment or further study within 6 months of their graduation. And crucially for the graduate apprenticeship programmes, 47% of our graduate apprentices achieve a first class degree. That's based on our first cohort of graduating graduate apprentices. Because we've just come to the end of the first 4-year programme of GA, so we have one cohort to base that on at the moment. And why Heriot-Watt for data science? Well, our data science programme is one that we're really proud of, and it can really help businesses to harness the power of their data. The programme will help to develop graduates, and Heba will come on to this in much more detail soon, but the programme will develop graduates with business-focused data skills. So it's back to that piece about understanding the data that you have and how to use it. The ability to assess, analyse and report on your company's data. How to deliver data-driven insights to focus growth on key areas and opportunities that are relevant for your business. The whole programme's been designed to produce highly skilled employees in machine learning, data handling and visualisation, data architecture, software engineering and business insight analysis, and Heba will go into much more detail of those in just a few moments, and particularly she'll give us more insight into the specific application of those skills in financial services, because that's what's really crucial for yourselves on the call. But before we move on to Heba and the detail of the data science programme, I'm going to give you an overview of the graduate apprenticeships. I know that there's varied knowledge on the call, and different levels of understanding and awareness of the graduate apprenticeship programme. So it's really important to remember that a graduate apprenticeship is not an apprenticeship for graduates. That's one that people quite often get mixed up with. It's an apprenticeship, it's a work-based learning opportunity that's an apprenticeship that helps develop people in the business to become graduates and develop all the graduate attributes and skills alongside achieving a degree in the subject that they're studying. They're a groundbreaking initiative, and the outcome is degree qualified employees with key skills that are tailored to the needs of the business, because it's been a work-based learning opportunity. So you have your academic learning and your work-based learning, which are both crucial to achieving your graduate apprenticeship. It's a way to study towards an honours degree whilst remaining in full-time employment. And all GA programmes are fully funded, so there's no additional cost to the employer or to the employee. The work-based learning approach of the graduate apprenticeships makes sure that there's practical application of your academic learning in the business environment, and you can do that straight away. So unlike an undergraduate qualification where you would study for 4 years and then you would have a work opportunity where you would put different parts of your studies from various previous years into practice, what you're learning you can apply in business straight away as you're actually learning. So that'll really help to consolidate your learning and also help you to understand how you have the practical applications. Our data science graduate apprenticeship doesn't only build data skills, it develops talented people like yourselves with hands-on work-based experience in using those data skills and honing them and making them relevant for your business. So that's just a little snapshot. Graduate apprenticeships in their entirety, they're part of the apprenticeship family. You may have heard of foundation and modern apprenticeships. You may already have modern apprenticeships within your business that are well established. Graduate apprenticeships are probably, they're newer than modern apprenticeships and just becoming more established across the number of programmes that we offer. What we do find is that we often have students who've completed a modern apprenticeship progressing on to a graduate apprenticeship. So they're a great pathway for talented MEs who are in your business to go on to qualify for their degree in a work-based learning environment. It's not doing a part-time degree whilst also doing a full-time job. They're not separate, they're part of the same thing. Your work-based learning and your academic learning make up your whole role as a graduate apprentice. It's about integrating the work-based learning and activities with the learning outcomes of your degree, and that is throughout the 4 years that you're studying for. I think I can't really reiterate that point strongly enough. It's one that people do get confused about and think that it's two separate things. No, it's all part of the same thing, and it's about your work-based learning and your academic learning. So the way that actually is delivered, again, Heb will go into details about it, but the majority is work-based learning, and there's some time during the working week where there is taught academic learning and set pieces of work from the academic team. So graduate apprenticeships are great to bring new talented employees into your business, but they're also fantastic to upskill your existing workforce or to reskill existing employees who are looking to develop. They're designed to fill critical skills gaps in a business. Going back to the start, we have a skills gap in data skills across the country in all sectors of the economy, and your businesses won't be any different, which is the whole reason that you're on the call today, is to find out about how this programme in particular can help you to address that skills gap for data science. And there's two key roles up at the top of the slide there that are supports for the graduate apprentice: the workplace mentor and the personal tutor. They are both really, really key roles to keep the student on track with both their work-based and their academic learning. And again, Heba will expand on the roles of these individuals. So I think I've probably spoken enough for just now. So Heba, I'm going to hand over to you to share more details about our data science GA.
Thanks a lot, Jen. Thank you. My name is Heba, and I'm the co-program director of the Data Science Graduate Apprenticeship. And our team, as you will see, is not a very huge one, but I reassure you that we do a lot. And what's common always between us as a team is always the students' priority. So we always make sure that the apprentices happy and all their feedback is listened to and being implemented as much as we can, of course. So the team is Dr. Gilly Salmon, which is my also program director on the team, and Dr. Juan Casanova, which is part of the teaching team. I don't have here all the other academic members who help us on the program, so we work very closely with our academics in Edinburgh Business School. We also work with other academics in the Mathematicals and Computer Science School at Heriot-Watt as well. And of course, there is also the head of discipline, Dr. Matt Dunnigan. The applications or why data science is important in financial services. I'm sure you all know data is everywhere, and actually finance is considered as the hub for data, and it was one of the very earliest areas where data science started to evolve even before the word data science appeared. And you would see here there are some applications that I have shown, like the risk analytics, for example. So to make sure that the company is in a better situation, you need to always make sure that the risk analytics and management are being strong. The real-time analytics, we normally use the old data to rely on how to make our decisions. But of course, as we are, it's changing very rapidly, situations are changing very rapidly, then we also need to be looking at the real-time data to make sure that we're making the right decisions. We also want to make our customers happy. So consumer analytics is one of the areas where the data science would be very useful for the financial services, as well as providing some personalized services. And of course, the fraud detection is something that's very crucial. And again, data science can help you to be able to detect that. And finally, the algorithm trading, which is one of the main applications of machine learning, is also a very important application for the financial services in the data science. So for our program, we have different outputs that are taken all through over the 4 years. So we start with the personal qualities and professional competencies. So this is something that we work on through the 4 years of the program. We make sure that our apprentices are developing not only their data science skills and mathematical skills, but also their personal skills and development. The data management and analytics as well is something that we concentrate on from year 1, of course, till year 4, looking at how to store the data in a structured way, how to work with databases, how to visualize the data in an insightful way, and so on. Data protection and ethics, this is something that we focus on year 2. By looking at the code of ethics and how to make sure that the data is secured and protected. The machine learning and artificial intelligence, again, this is something that we focus on year 3. And we try to first build a strong foundation of skills and concepts in the first 2 years. This before we go into the deep with the machine learning and artificial intelligence. And we also have some courses which rely on explaining and using some of the engineering skills. So we have some courses where we deal with some business awareness and scale and sustainability. The way, although we don't have in our apprentices any engineers, but still there is some skills that they need to learn to do some problem solving. And we try to make sure to give them these skills. The support that's offered to our apprentices is mainly through the university and also through the mentors, as Jen has pointed out. So through the university, of course, the apprentices have access to all the lectures, all the tutorials with the recordings. We have also some tailored supporting resources where a student may come and tell us that they have a specific software that they use at their workplace and they want to learn more about it. So we would provide them with resources that would support their learning and be able to help them as much as they want. With the hybrid teaching that we are offering now, this is something, again, that our students value a lot, because then it can help them to go back and watch the recording if they have missed anything, or if they have any family emergency or any personal emergency and they can't attend the lecture in person, then they can watch the recording and catch up. Individual feedback is something that we work on very hard. We work to have the feedback as detailed as it can be. Timely feedback is something that we also value a lot. And also the individual support for our apprentices in any areas of improvement. So the feedback that we give them, it's a constructive feedback, and we try to always tell them where they can improve their work. We work very closely with the mentors as personal tutors and work-based mentors. We work very closely with them, and the support that the mentors provide is how the apprentice can manage their working and studying at the same time. If they have just finished high school, then the mentor would try to provide them with the support from the transition from school to work. When the apprentices are thinking about their assessments, then the mentor can help them to suggest some work-based activities, and again provide feedback and discuss with the personal tutor or the program directors any concerns that arise, because we know that of course, things will happen. Next slide, please, David. Yeah. For the program delivery, so first of all, it's 1 day per week on campus. For year 1 and year 3, it's a Friday. For year 2 and year 4, it's a Monday. During this day, the apprentices are just students. They come from 9 to 5 on campus or online. And we also expect them to have an additional 4 hours per week to continue working on the student or the lectures and tutorials that are offered on the uni. They have 2 core courses every year. The core courses are similar to the regular undergrad courses, so they have lectures, they have tutorials, so it's more contact time and it's also more work to be done. We normally work 3 semesters, so we're covering approximately 42 weeks. Of course, we have breaks in Christmas, Easter, and summer. And it is a 4-year program, and the final degree is a Bachelor of Science, and hopefully with honors as well. The support that I was talking about is normally through the quarterly review meetings that we have. So each apprentice have at least 3 to 4 meetings a year. These meetings are involving the apprentice, the personal tutor, and the work-based mentor. In these meetings, the first one, we work with the individual learning agreement, where the apprentice states down their goals, what they want to achieve, whether it's an academic goal to improve their mathematical skills, their data science skills, or whether it's a personal development goal, improving their presentation skills, report writing, and so on. And in the following 2 or 3 meetings, we check the progress, we check if these goals have been met or not, we check what are the factors that affected that progress, and what's the support that's needed from the university or from the work-based mentor. And we also set some specific goals for the next meeting to try to reach them. So just to conclude, no, you were right, David. Just to conclude and to make sure that you're in the right place, if you have lots of data, and I'm sure that all of you do, and you want to sort it, you want to arrange it, you want to present it in an insightful way, in a way that's easy to understand, so that it's easier for you to tell or to explain a story with the data you have, then you are in the right place to learn data science. And I reassure you that we will help you through that journey. And I hope I made sense. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you. So I hand it over now to Miriam and Fiona from Sainsbury Bank.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miriam Freeman. I work for Sainsbury's. I'm an apprenticeship and qualifications lead, and I work in partnership with Heriot-Watt and with our apprentices. So I'm here today just really to talk to you a little bit about the apprenticeship programme. So we've been working with Heriot-Watt as a business since 2018. We've got 4 colleagues who are currently graduate apprentices with Heriot-Watt on 3 different programmes, not just the data science. There are other programmes are available. Heriot-Watt has been an absolutely massive support to Sainsbury's and also to our data science team. So as you know, data is important to all of us in our roles, and you're probably thinking, why would I choose Heriot-Watt? Why would I do that? For me personally, I think the way that they dealt with the pandemic was absolutely amazing. As you've just heard there, part of this course is for the apprentices to go to campus every day for 1 day a week and do some online learning as well. However, when the pandemic hit back in March of 2020, that had to change, and it had to change fast. And the dedication and the support from Heriot-Watt towards our apprentices during that time has been second to none. So I would highly recommend them as a great choice as an apprenticeship provider. They changed all of their normal face-to-face learning into online learning within a few weeks. They supported our apprentices. They got together online libraries of learning. So if you've got colleagues out there who maybe are still a little bit intimidated by the pandemic and are concerned about going to a campus once every week, then please reassure them that Heriot-Watt do have answers in place, and if they can deal with the pandemic, they can deal with anything. It's not about me today, though, because the star of the show is my colleague Fiona. She's been on the data science programme for nearly 3 years now. She is, I'd say, she's one of our stars in Sainsbury's Bank. And not only is she an apprentice, she's a full-time manager in our organisation as well. So I'm going to hand over to her to tell you a little bit about her story, her experience and her journey. And I'll be available at the end for questions. Thank you.
Fiona, I've just stopped sharing the screen, so it's over to you.
Thanks, Miriam. So I'm Fiona. I work as the Savings, Liquidity and Analytics Manager in Sainsbury's Bank. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about why I decided to join the Graduate Apprentice Programme, what it's really like for graduate apprenticeships, what support is needed from the business, and what benefits you'll see as a business, hopefully, if you do have students going through this course. So a bit about my background. I've got over 20 years experience in financial services, and I've been at Sainsbury's Bank for just over 7 years now. My roles that I've done a variety of roles, but they've tended to have a kind of analytical slant to them, regardless of whether I've been more on the commercial side or in a more pure analytical role. So the reasons for deciding to do a graduate apprenticeship, I'm sure I'm not what comes to mind for most people when either the word graduate or apprentice is mentioned. And I was quite surprised to find myself back in an education setting. It's not something I ever really thought I would do, and certainly not so long after I last left education. But I think for me personally, previously throughout the time that I've worked in financial services, obviously there are very often development programs available, but they tend to focus either on a kind of management route or the more financial route, so accountancy exams, things like that, neither of which were really areas that I was looking to develop in. So I think when I saw the graduate apprenticeship in data science, that felt like something that would really suit my skill set and my interests, and hopefully open up opportunities in future for me to continue to do the work that I enjoy, but maybe bring something a bit different. So actually doing the graduate apprenticeship is challenging. I think for me, one of the main challenges is around time management. So I've got a relatively responsible role at work. It's sometimes difficult to balance the responsibilities of work, of studying, of life generally. But I think having the day a week that we are away from the office, whether that's on campus as it was in first year, or a mixture of online and on campus now that we're back to not being fully online. And I think we had some kind of fairly specific challenges for our year. So one of them is that we were the first cohort going through the course. There's no one kind of the year ahead of us. So our experiences are helping shape the course, and also dealing with the arrival of the pandemic, as Miriam mentioned, and the move to online and then to the hybrid learning has also presented some new experiences, I guess. But I think both of these things have given us massive opportunities as well. So in terms of the hybrid approach that's now being taken, as Heba said, it means that we now have the benefit that we can go and look back at lectures because they're all recorded. Everything's available online. It's also meant that for some of the people on the course who live a bit further away, they're not having to commute through every week for the course. And so it's kind of opened up, I guess, opportunities for people that aren't quite so Edinburgh based to join the course. I think some of the opportunities that have been interesting. So I've worked in financial services for a long time now. Financial services in Edinburgh is a relatively small world, and there's a lot of people that kind of are fairly similar in their approach to things. So I think being able to work with and study with people who have very different backgrounds to us, and hear their views and their experiences has definitely given us, I guess it's food for thought, and maybe the ability to adopt slightly different ways of working or different ways of thinking. I think where we have some courses that aren't only the data science students, but also have some of the engineering students as well, that's obviously a very different set of skills that they bring. So working with them on some of the projects has definitely kind of just brought something different to them for us. I think in terms of the university itself, as Miriam said, and they have been very supportive to us. They have taken on board suggestions that we've made. As I say, we are the first cohort to go through this course. So the changes have been made over the time that we've been doing it, to kind of, whether it's different types of software, as Heba mentioned, kind of being built in, or different ways of thinking about it. And to quote Heba, because I know that this is something that she says very often, they are kind of learning along with us, and that's really refreshing. You know, it's not we're here to teach you. We do get some input into maybe this would work better, maybe that would work better. Any concerns that we have, anything that we think might be done better a different way, because obviously we are the ones that are working in the businesses, and this needs to work for the businesses as well. And the one of the big benefits of the graduate apprenticeship scheme is that what you should come out with at the end of it is kind of much more fully formed. So you have the business view and the academic view, rather than an undergraduate apprentice coming in who might have all the kind of book learning, but not necessarily the business awareness. In terms of the support, so if any of you are considering or have graduate apprentices working for you in future, I think the support is really important. Heba mentioned that it's partly about making sure that there's time available to work on the coursework. So there's obviously one day a week that you're not at work, but I think it's also important to understand that it's not just that one day, it's not a part-time course. There are commitments throughout the year that do take time. I think also making sure that there are suitable projects available, that you understand what the graduate apprentice is trying to achieve through the projects, and helping them find kind of appropriate topics to look at. I don't work in data science at the moment. I work much more on the commercial side, although, as I said before, it's kind of analytical role. But having those contacts we have a data science team in the bank, and so having those contacts in data science that we can go to and speak to and say, yeah, I'm thinking about doing this, would it be better to do it this way or that way, has been really helpful, in a way that my workplace mentor, who is also on the commercial side, doesn't necessarily have the insight for what might be a good project to do. He understands it from the business side. Data science understand it from the data science side, and bringing those together, I guess, is kind of the key of what the graduate apprenticeships are about. And the other thing I would say from a point of view of support is to celebrate the fact that there are apprentices in the business. It is a big commitment to do this course. It's 4 years. It sometimes feels slightly relentless with the amount of work. It's long university years, so you know, we don't have long breaks in the summer from it. So there's very often stuff to think about. So I think celebrating that is quite important. But coming to the benefits for the business, so I think it would be easy to say, oh, I need to wait 4 years. It's a 4-year course, you know. Why would I support someone through 4 years where I'm giving them 1 day a week that they're out of the business? But I think the important thing is that you don't need to wait 4 years to see the benefits. So a very specific example from my colleague who's also on the course. During the pandemic, obviously a lot of things changed in the business. Bits of the business weren't as busy as they had been previously because of changes in travel or, you know, customer needs. Some areas the work ramped up, other areas it slowed down a bit. So he was able to, because his role was less busy at the time, to go and work in the data science team on a secondment for several months, which is obviously a huge benefit to the business, partly because they were able to redeploy him and partly because I don't know what anyone else's business is like, but it feels like anything that needs analytical input, there's very often a long list of requirements that are needed, different pieces of work being prioritised. So having some extra resource in that team kind of was a benefit to everyone. Within our own teams, we're able to start picking up some of the projects that might have gone to data science. So it means that there's less competition for resource in the data science team. It means that we can prioritise our own work and not wait for it to be prioritised against loans or cards or insurance or travel money or ATMs or any of the other things that we do. So we're able to kind of manage that within our own teams now and increasingly going forwards. I think as well, it can be quite difficult to recruit people with the appropriate data skills. I know that that's something that we've struggled with over the years. And as was mentioned before, you know, there's an increasing need for people with good data skills who are able to carry out this type of work. So rather than always competing with them, this allows you to bring in some people with other skills and give them the data skills on top of that. I think where you're bringing in people with other skills, or you have people already in your business with other skills, I think certainly for myself, I have a very commercial background. I've worked in pricing and forecasting in both the lending and the savings side of the balance sheet. I have quite a wide experience. So I feel like adding the technical skills to that makes me it gives me a fairly unique set of skills to have both sides of it, because I think very often there's a bit of there's analytics on one side and there's commercial on the other side. And so bringing the two of those together is definitely a strong combination. And again, that's where, because we can work with probably more closely with data science and the team there, it does build a much closer relationship with them, and it helps us to understand what they're doing, but also we can help them understand what we're trying to achieve with it. So I think there are definitely a lot of benefits to the business. As I say, you don't need to wait the 4 years until the course is finished to do that. Things can be built in right from the start, whether it's around understanding how a database is structured, or, you know, what the benefits are in constructing it one way versus a different way, whether it's around just a slightly different point of view around the ethics of how you're using the data or the data protection. You know, all these things should come into everything that we do every day. And I think just having that focus on it has certainly been something that's helped me to kind of tailor the way that I think about things at work. That's all I had to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Fiona. that was a really, really valuable insight to understand both the impact for yourself and how your studies and your ultimately your qualification will be and have been adding value to the way that you approach your role and into your business. So thank you very much for sharing that. I'm sure people do have questions for you. I've seen a couple pop up in the chat so far. So we'll move on to the question and answer part of the session. This is your chance to ask us questions, and anything that you wanted to learn that hasn't been covered in the presentations, then feel free to ask it, and David will facilitate the correct panel member to answer it for you. If you have any questions just on the housekeeping side, you can either put them into the chat, there's some in there already, or you can raise your hand and we will come to you if you keep your hand raised. Just if you raise your hand when we do come to you, if you're happy to switch your camera off and unmute your mic, then we'll be able to hear your question and see who you are that's asking for it. So before we move on to getting the questions from the chat answered, Heba, we put the Padlet in at the start. Hopefully there have been some responses on the Padlet. I'm going to hand over to Heba to talk us through what's come through from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Unfortunately, I don't see any comments on the Padlet. I'm not sure if people are struggling to open it. If they can just let us know, or we can give them more time to use it, and we can come back to it after we finish the Q&A.
Yep, we'll come back to it. So if you can, if you have any comments to add to the Padlet, then just feel free to do that whilst we're answering the questions.
Okay, so let's crack on with the questions. So there's a couple in the chat. I'll keep an eye on if anyone wants to put their hand up, as you say, Jen. So first question there's from Peter and directed at you, Fiona, if you'd be so kind. So it's just really in relation to your workplace mentor in terms of how important is that role? Is it different from your line manager? And is there any advice you could give really on identifying the right person as a mentor?
So I think for me, my workplace mentor is my line manager at the moment, but there's no requirement for that to be the case. I think there are different sides to what you need from a workplace mentor. So their role is very important. I think there's a couple of sides some of which mean that it's better for it to be your line manager. Others which mean, depending on what role you're in, it might not be. So I think one of them is the benefits of it being my line manager is he understands the pressures of what's being asked for me from my role as well as from the graduate apprenticeship. So I don't have that conflict. He helps me to manage the conflict between work requirements and study requirements. Where there's possibly less input from him is around identifying and understanding the types of projects that we should be able to do. And so that's why I work with the data science team as well. So I think in terms of what advice I would give, I would say make sure it's someone that you're comfortable with, make sure that it's someone that can help you manage if there are conflicts, because that can be the case, someone that can make sure that you have the time to do what you need to do, but also if there's someone else who can help with, if they can't help with the technical side of it, if there's someone else that can help with that, that's probably the ideal setup. I think, and I'm sure Heba will correct me if I'm wrong with this, you can have more than one workplace mentor kind of officially, but I think like any kind of mentoring, you know, it's rare to find someone that will give you absolutely everything you need. So have that support in place from the different areas that can help you and make sure everything's covered off.
Thanks, Fiona. So next question is from Charles. Heb, I think this is probably most relevant for yourself in terms of, is a plan to keep up with the hybrid working so that people can continue to watch the lectures from home if they can't make it in for whatever reason?
Yes, the plan is to continue with the hybrid working and teaching. That's very that's what we are planning for. but we're always planning to keep improving on it. So as Miriam have stated, we make that transition from being fully on campus to be fully online in 2 weeks. And we have a great team in our Learning and Teaching Academy, which have trained us to use the responsive blended learning, which is a mix between synchronous and asynchronous activities and teaching material. But we always keep working on improving that, and we are always trying to make it the best experience for our students. So far, since 2020, we didn't have any negative feedback about online learning. Students are comfortable with it, they are enjoying it, although at the beginning they are a bit skeptical about it and worried. But this is something that we work with them on, and we are planning to continue doing that. That's for sure, and keep improving on it as well.
Thanks, Eva. That's great. Thank you. I suppose again, but next one, this is from Andrew. It's really about eligibility for and entry requirements for the course. I think you can see it there. So it's just in terms of people maybe having different levels of prior knowledge and just generally what's the expected level of knowledge and qualifications for entry onto the course. Yeah, so for us, for the entry levels, the only thing that we are always, we need to make sure that the mathematical skills are there. We need to make sure that the mathematical qualifications are there, because mathematics is a very important component of our program, and it builds the base for the program. So if your mathematical skills are not strong enough, you would struggle as you go into years 2 or 3 and 4. So we make sure that the mathematical skills are up to date. We have a diagnostic test, which is normally required to have a better idea of the level of support that the apprentice would need for the mathematics. For the programming skills, we know that everyone can have different levels. We try to start in year 1 from the very basic level, but if the apprentice who's applying have already knowledge or has done some courses before in other degrees or even open universities or online, we have exemptions, so they can apply for exemptions from some courses if they feel they have the priority or the prior knowledge for these courses. Of course, the exemption is an application that goes through the program director and the course leaders, and they make the right decision based on the learning outcomes of the course and if the learning outcomes are being met or not. Okay, thanks, Heather. So Dan has just noticed there's a question on the Padlet. Again, I think maybe for you, Heather. Yeah. So it's about if you previously, the question is, if you previously studied a BA honours degree in Scotland, would this course still be fully funded? If you did a previous, presumably an undergraduate. I would say what I know here, but I think Derek is the best person to answer that. But I think it depends on the degree that's done. So if the degree is related to data science, then it might not be eligible. But if it's a degree, for example, we have some GAs who have done degrees in politics, who have done degrees in maybe even mechanical engineering or something that's not very much related to data science, then they can still be funded. But I think Derek will answer this better than me. Okay. Thanks, Emma. Thank you. Yeah, it's not clear in the question about if it's how closely related it is to data science or not.
I'm struggling to find it in the Padlet. Can you remind me what it says again so I get it specifically?
So so the question that was on the Padlet was, if you previously studied a BA honours degree, so presumably undergraduate in Scotland, would this course still be fully funded?
The best people to provide that answer are actually the funding body. So the funding for GA programs is currently awarded through SAS funding. So an individual really needs to contact SAS and ask them the question, would I get funding given the fact I've already done this previous degree? Our experience is that if the degree is significantly different from the previous degree, then it would be funded because it's seen as reskilling. If it was very similar, then the answer is likely to be no, but the question has really got to be asked of SAS.
Great.
We can share a link to the SAS website so that the individual can check with them directly. I'll try and find it.
Thanks, Derek. That's great.
Derek, can I ask you to come back in on the question about the workplace mentor? If you have anything to add to what Fiona said and the support that we can offer for workplace mentors, because there might be some people on the call who are thinking, who would be my workplace mentor, or I might end up being a workplace mentor, what is out there for me? So if you could expand a bit on that from the Heriot-Watt perspective, that would be great.
Sure. So we have a webinar that we've produced for workplace mentors, specifically tailored to the needs of those mentoring graduate apprentices. And that's, I think, useful in the sense that it can act as a refresher for those who've been mentors before and are considering being a mentor for a GA, or have been approached or nominated to be a mentor and are a little bit unsure about what that's going to entail specifically in relation to a graduate apprentice, because unless they've mentored with a graduate apprentice before, then it will be new to them. They might be used to mentoring, but new to mentoring in a GA context. So there's a couple of elements there. There's one is the induction webinar. We offer the opportunity for the mentors to come along, and that's where they would learn about what's involved in mentoring with a GA. They would there at that point learn about the three-way relationship between the personal tutor, the student, the GA student themselves, and the workplace mentor, and they would learn the importance of working in partnership in that three-way relationship. They would learn about the timings of that, when it's important to have those meetings. They wouldn't necessarily be involved in arranging the meetings. That would be more the responsibility of the student. But to have the knowledge that the meetings are supposed to happen, to keep regular contact, to keep the momentum going, so that the learning isn't just seen to be a one-day-a-week thing. It's more about integrating learning at work with learning at university and keeping that whole process moving along throughout the academic year. And so the mentor's role in that would also be to have the awareness of what's coming up academically and how that might match with what's coming up at work, and how those two things might align or they might not align, and we might have to mitigate that. And also then throughout the year to understand what progress needs to be achieved, the milestones that have to be achieved to allow progression at the end of the academic year into the following year. So in the mentors being part of the GA induction will allow them to understand all of that. In terms of the mentoring skills, then I come back to the mentor webinar, which we offer as an added value offering, where the mentors can either top up their knowledge on what mentoring skills are, what's involved. We would talk about things like the GROW model and how coaching can be part of the mentoring process. We would also then talk about some of the processes that can be involved in mentoring, like setting the ground rules right at the start for the relationship. So it's very important that a relationship between a mentor and the student is a productive one. It's obviously something that is a partnership at work, and therefore, you know, without beating about the bush, they have to get on well together to make that happen. I was searching earlier for a slide to drop in the chat, but I'll just talk through. There were the three elements that another program director put forward to me, which I thought were good enough that really we should just share them with everybody. The three elements, the three qualities, if you like, that are required of a mentor. So rather than have an aspiration that the mentor should have qualifications or should have mentoring ability that's tried and tested, it's more about they should have an interest in the individual they're supporting and mentoring, and they should have enough knowledge of the business to know how to signpost the student to something, to find you know, a place or a person to contact for resources or for information where the student's doing the research. So knowledge and interest. And then the third thing is if not authority, then at least some influence within the business. So this is where it comes back to, with Fiona being her line manager, clearly the line manager has enough influence to be able to say to anyone else in the business that this person's on a GA program, and if we don't facilitate their learning and support them, then, you know, we're really just setting a recipe for disaster rather than a road to success. So it's about having enough influence or authority within the business as well. These would be the three qualities, I think, that would be more important than qualifications.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, good stuff. So Andrew, another question coming from Andrew. So I think maybe, so one's about the sort of general process. I might come back to you, Derek, on that one, and then there's a second part which will come to Fiona on in terms of the personal experience for Fiona and excuse me, Miriam, for the Sainsbury's experience. But I suppose from a general point of view, Derek, can you just chat us through the sort of steps involved in getting the apprenticeship set up through the business?
So if we're approached by an employer to an inquiry about places on a program, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose the first step is to make sure that there's a really good understanding within the business about what this is. Much of what we talked about here today is to try and help with that. It's not an easy route to a degree. It's not a part-time route to a degree. It's a combining, as the name suggests, it's an apprenticeship. So it's a combining of learning at work with combining that with academic study. So that's how it would be described. But what's entailed in that is really crucial before embarking upon signing up to the process. So quite often what we do with employers is we offer them a call with a program director so that they can explore with the program director what's involved in the curriculum over the 4 years, how is it mapped out over the 4 years, and is there a good alignment with what's in the curriculum and what the business does or what the individual does in their job role. And where there is gaps in that alignment, and usually there are because there's never 100% perfect fit, then it's what do we do about that alignment and how can we mitigate that? So it's important to have those conversations as early on in the process as possible. If we decide that the alignment can be made to work and there's opportunities for mitigation. So an example would be that Fiona mentioned working with the data science team, and that's not her team. So that's a good example of where the business has said, no, you can go and work somewhere else to gain the exposure to the environment that you need to help you understand the part of the curriculum you're currently working with, and you can submit assessment material based on that. So that kind of mitigation, if that's all deemed to be doable within the business, we can then start to progress to the next step. Of course, wrapped up in all of that is, do we have suitable candidates within the business? And suitable candidates are really just those that are eligible in terms of entry qualifications, those that are eligible in terms of where they've been resident so that they can get SAS funding. And other than that, it is pretty much about a conversation in the early stages before we push the button to actually start the application process in, you know, our kind of system that's built to accommodate that, where the individual would upload their qualifications. The qualifications would then be checked by the program director. Their year of entry would then be determined, and we would then move to a phase in the process where we could issue a contract between the university and the employer, and all three parties would sign. So the student would sign, the person representing the organisation, the employer, would sign, and Heriot-Watt would sign. So we then have a contract that all three parties have signed up to. And what's within that contract is really everything that we've just talked about would be in the early conversations to understand the commitment, the level of support that's required from the business. And once that contract's in place, that allows us to enrol the individual as a student, which in turn allows the university to draw down the funding. And the only other thing to add in is that the individual now must apply to SAS for the funding. So at some point in the process, we would check that they have checked themselves with SAS for their eligibility, so that we know that once we enrol them as a student, they can draw down the funding. Once all that's in place, then we start classes, and it's a 4-year journey normally. So that's pretty much the process.
Cool, thanks, Derek. So just to go on the second part in terms of maybe the Sainsbury's experience, Miriam, would you mind just, if that's most relevant for you, in terms of how the team at Sainsbury's found the whole process for taking on GAs?
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. So I think the biggest thing is you need a colleague who is dedicated and committed, because this isn't a short programme. It's not over in 12 months. It is a 4-year commitment. You need to be in quite a stable place with your business, and you really need to understand why you've put the apprenticeship into place. What is your end goal, and why you're using this as a development route, or in some instances, you might be employing a graduate apprentice, and I understand that. Making sure that the job role fits around the apprenticeship is the other thing, because you need to look at it as a whole, so over the full 4 years, and are you going to be able to blend the learning with that colleague's job role so they get the skills, knowledge and behaviours they need throughout that 4 years? It's not a short-term commitment. With regards to things like paperwork, it's relatively easy as long as the colleague does have those prerequisites. But I think the most important thing is having the right colleagues, the right support in place in your business, because this is a big commitment, but definitely a worthwhile one. Does that answer your question, or is there anything else I can help with?
No, I think that's spot on. Thank you, Miriam.
Conscious
of time, but I would just quite like to get to Chris's last question on the chat just now. Maybe that's one for you, just maybe because it strays more into content. So is this only available to those working with financial data, or can people working with other data also apply, whether it be marketing or cybersecurity?
Yeah, so you will see on that call, we focused more on the financial data because most of the audience is on financial services and financial data, but we definitely work with a very diverse field. So the marketing can also be there. Regarding the cybersecurity, this is a topic that we have in mind we might be thinking of including more like optional courses to cover the cybersecurity part. There is some parts that are covered, for example, in the data ethics and security and protection, but we don't have a dedicated course talking about cybersecurity yet. But for the marketing, we sure do, because we also work very closely, as I said, with the Edinburgh Business School, and we have the IT Management for Business GA. And we have shared courses together, and we work very closely with them. So the marketing part would definitely be covered here.
I think the only other thing to add to that, Chris, would be the course content is completely applicable to other sorts of data. You'd need to have the conversation with your employer to make sure that they would be supportive of you applying to take that forward. Sorry, David, I just wanted to
no, that's good point, Jim. Yeah. Okay, so there's no other questions on the chat just now. Just wait a second. While we do that, I suppose just like to thank everybody for joining us today. It was really great to have so many people on the call. Thanks also to Jen and Heber for your presentations before. Obviously, special thanks go to Miriam and Fiona for sharing their experiences of the graduate apprenticeships with Sainsbury's Banks, and thanks again to Derek for your contribution there and the questions. As always with these things, questions tend to pop into your head post-event, so please do feel free to email us at ga@hw.ac.uk. We'll put details on that. We'll obviously be following up with this in terms of getting the recording of the event out to you. So we'll make sure that we've got any sort of further contact details on there if you would like to ask any further questions. Thank you, Jen, for putting that in there. So unless we have any more questions, I'll be happy to close the call there. Great stuff. Okay, listen, thanks again, everybody, for your time today. Much appreciated, and we hope you found the information useful. And as I say, any questions, just get in touch. Thank you very much.